This segment brought to you by Bravo Company USA.
Gregory Stunden. Can you give any info on the upcoming LAV Glocks? I've been getting that a lot. We are looking to launch it the end of August. It's still on track. We're looking to launch at the end of August. Like I said, still on track. I really can't give away too many details. However, I will tell you the configurations are some of the most requested ones we've had. I'll tell you that. In terms of colors and whatnot, like I said, I can't give you any real details because we don't want to, we're a month out from the launch. But it is something that a lot of people have requested, and actually in many ways probably the most requested flavors and color configuration. So I'll leave that, you guys can ponder that.
These are coming in my, look at this.
Oh, here we go.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Like I said, this is the first time we've done it. We're going to refine this stuff. And I'm on an iMac here and figuring out how to bring the comments up on the iMac. I count on my film crew to do this. And you got to ask yourself, what are they getting paid for? Right? No, I'm just kidding. I wouldn't even be on here either with you if it wasn't for those guys. All right, so here we go. What was it like to shoot with Christian Haynes? What was it like to shoot with Mark Martin? He was a really cool dude. We hit it off immediately. I mean, I really liked him. We really hit it off. Him and his son, they brought a couple of their friends. And matter of fact, hey, Eric, will you give me my Mark Martin signed hat right over there? You see it over there on the bookshelf? I'm going to show you guys my Mark Martin signed hat. But he was really cool. I liked him a lot. Really down to earth. Great guy. There it is. Look, see? Look at this right here.
Yeah.
Hells yeah. To Larry, Mark Martin. Yeah.
Nice.
Camera thing sorted.
Oh,
there we go. Yeah, there we go. See, he's better.
There we go.
Yes. Hell yeah. It was great. We had a great time. Good dude. I asked him, I said, I won't tell anybody, but I said, man, who was the biggest asshole in NASCAR? And he said, he was on the track or off the track? I said, either. He said, on the track, Dale Earnhardt. He goes, I can tell you that right now. He goes, Dale Earnhardt would do anything to win. He would do anything. And he goes, and what really got under your skin is when he won and you knew you were driving a better car than him that day. He goes, that is what really, he goes, but I can tell you off the track, the guy was just an absolute gem. He was a teddy bear, great guy. He goes, but on the track, trust me, he was the biggest asshole, bar none. He goes, and that's why they called him the Intimidator, and he earned it.
That's a racer. Yeah,
but nah, Mark Martin, great guy. I hope he or some of his guys are watching. We hit it off great. I really liked him. How did you make the contacts to do all those videos in Russia? Good question. Networking. It's like a spider web. This guy knows this guy, and Tyler knows somebody, and he talks to this guy, and one thing leads to another. Somebody watches this, and they know a guy, and it's just networking. And I got connected into some, into the right people to go over and see some really cool stuff. And then what happened was I went over that first time, and it went okay. Could have went better. A little Cold War action there going on. A little spooky at times. My crew's still spooked over it. But some of the people saw what we did and liked what we did and how we presented the Russian small arms. Because I'm a gun guy. I don't give a shit if the thing's made on Pluto. I'm going to evaluate it. You got to evaluate it for what it is. You don't get into the politics of it. I mean, come on. And they saw that, and they saw that I dealt with everything very fairly, even-handed, kind of looked at things for the way they were, and they opened the door and invited me back, and the second trip was awesome. Hoping to go back again. We'll see.
Kind of on that note, that's kind of interesting, and I know Larry experienced firsthand. I've experienced it in certain countries I've been to, but at the end of the day, other countries' special operations forces, warriors are warriors.
Oh yeah.
And a true warrior throws politics out the window.
Yeah.
Not to paraphrase a movie, but at the end of the day, you know, there's a bond shared by warriors from, you know, I've been to other countries that, so many countries that met with their special operations forces and just went, dude, this is me. If I grew up in this country, this dude would be me.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was over in Russia that first time. Guy came up to me. We were out there filming at that one SWAT competition thing they had. Guy came up to me. He didn't even speak English, but his buddy did. And he says, hey, he just wants to tell you that he appreciates what you've done for the special operations community worldwide. And you know, it's an honor to meet you. And here I am outside of Moscow, Russia. I was like, whoa. So yeah, Tyler's right. I mean, the guy, they're cut from the same cloth. What do you got?
This one's a good one, I think, that should be addressed right here.
Oh, here we go. Aman Singh. Is 19 only meant to be 45 ACP or 9mm reliable?
1911.
Is a 1911 only meant to be 45 ACP or is a 9mm reliable? At one time, I would have said, without a doubt, stay away from 9mm 1911s if you want anything, you know, other than range to it. But I can tell you, boy, they have come a long way. They are dramatically more reliable than they used to be. And Wilson's in particular has done a hell of a job refining 9mm magazines. So I got to tell you, I would tell you at this point, they're probably as reliable as 45 ACP. I would have never believed I would ever say that. But, I mean, Wilson's it was really done a great job with those.
And they're fun to shoot. If you shot it in 1911, I mean, 1911, again, we both grew up on 1911s. I mean, you know, the Cadillac of guns, but shooting at 9mm is fun because you can just blaze.
Well, and they'll spoil you, and then what'll happen is you get, especially a steel frame one.
Yeah,
it's the closest thing to shooting a 22 in a center fire caliber.
Yeah.
And you'll get used to it, and then you'll pick up something like a Glock or an M&P, and it's like, oh my, it's like you picked up a 357 Magnum. Yep. So you got to be careful because if you shoot them a lot, they will really spoil you.
Which this kind of brings up something interesting, and you and I were talking about it earlier, which is, you know, there's a lot of things in the gun world or gear world, whatever, that used to be true, and now they're really not. But kind of those old, you know, those old truths from back in the day have kind of carried on, and they've given things that now don't have the reliability or the issues they had back in the day. They still have a stigma because of how it was 20 years ago.
The ultimate example of that is the M16. I just saw a guy.
Talking about that today.
Yeah, I just saw a guy post on my Facebook page yesterday or the day before, and he was talking about how unreliable the M16 was from his service, and he would never trust one. Hey, bro, we are way past that. They are super reliable guns.
Oh, yeah.
The refinements that have been done. I mean, one is the number one. Two things you need to remember with that gun. You got to keep it lubed, and you got to use good magazines. If you run that gun dirty and dry, and if you use old shit, you know, beat up magazines, you're going to have problems. Yeah. You know, if you start having an issue with magazines, or it's a magazine you bought at a gun show for $3, hello, come on. I mean, you run good mags and keep that gun lubed and run good ammo, which is a given. Dude, man, that thing will run. They're great guns.
Absolutely.
All right, see what we got here. Oh, yeah, Christian Haynes. Speaking of 1911s, have you heard anything about the surplus 1911s the CMP was selling? My buddy Hackathon is pretty well tuned into that. And what he has heard is the guns are going to be pretty tough, and which means they're not going to be a lot. I mean, maybe hopefully he's wrong, but they're going to be rode hard, put away wet, and they're not going to be that cheap. So if you're a kind of guy that does not have a GI 1911, it's probably going to be something you want to look into. But if you're a guy who's already got some US GI 1911s, like I've got a few, you know, I'm good. I don't know that I'll be buying any. I mean, if I can get into one at a smoking deal, or if it turns out Ken's intel is wrong, then it might be different. But chances are I'll be passing. I mean, if you're...
Ooh, I'd love to address that one.
Oh, Rick Rosenfeld, practicality of a red dot sight on a combat handgun.
So, red dot sights on a handgun. This is a big thing. Obviously, it's the trend in handguns. You're seeing red dots get on handguns more and more. again, kind of going back to, and again, everything I'm talking about, kind of this overall philosophy is what I'm going to put on the gray man. I'm going to bring different experts in on, we talk about guns, Larry will be there. But again, you got to have the end state in mind. What's your ultimate end state? And depending on what your usage is, that should determine, what you're actually what gear is going to be determined by your ultimate usage. So specifically, and it was Rick Rosenfeld said a red dot sight on a combat handgun, not on a competition handgun. He said a combat handgun. One thing that people ask a lot about handguns is, in our world, or in our former world, I should say, a handgun's a backup. It is not a primary weapon, other than, maybe clearing confined spaces, things like that. So your rifle is your primary, your pistol is your secondary. And in that capacity, a red dot sight is really, in my opinion, I don't think it's faster for close in ranges.
Well, no. 5 yards and in, it's slower.
It's slower because it takes time to look for that dot. And even if you've got good muscle memory, which, by the way, if you've got so good muscle memory that you're automatically picking up that dot, it's automatically on target, then you don't need that dot to begin with because your muscle memory is naturally pointing it at the target. So personally, I don't think the future, I don't like red dot sights on a combat handgun, and I'm not even going to address the potential of failure on them. I'm just going to say, for the fact that any pistol engagement would normally be in closer range, where red dots shine is they're faster at longer distances.
And if movement's involved, you're moving or the target's moving, they're a huge advantage.
Absolutely. But in the way that you would use a pistol in combat,
in close, 10 yards and in,
probably wasting.
I would say probably not.
Yeah.
And what I've seen in my classes, I don't see them hardly anymore. Once in a while, they'll pop up in class. As a general rule, I rarely see them. You know what I mean? I rarely see them. Was for a while there, almost every pistol class I'd have somebody with one. See a lot of M&Ps with them and a significant number of Glocks. But you've kind of seen that trend reverse itself.
Actually,
what do we got here?
Might want to hit that one up, because that you can say. Mike
Thieves. Larry, could I please get a release date on the new Lipsey's G19? We're looking at the end of August. So stay tuned. We're planning on doing a Facebook Live release the day of, and of course I'll announce it and tease it and all that jazz. I'll be down with the Lipsey's guys when I do it. So stay tuned, but we're looking at the very end of August. The gray ones sold out from Lipsey's in 4 days, 5,000 guns. I just talked to my buddy at Lipsey's, Jason, yesterday, and I said, what's your gut feeling on this? And he expects these to sell up just as fast. So here's my call. Get a hold of your dealer who's tied into Lipsey's and have him right now say, I'll take one. And if it turns out it's a color that you don't like, then you can always turn it down. You say, yeah, let somebody else buy it. Or, hey, you know what? I saw on Larry's Facebook Live, video or feed what it was, and I decided I don't think I want it, or I don't have the money, or whatever, you know what I mean? Then you can always turn it down. You're better off saying, I'll take one now, and then turn it down later than the other way around. Like, I'll wait and see if one of them, if it's something I like. Oh, yeah, I like it. Let me get one. Hey, Holmes, the last one sold out in 4 days. All right.
It's Mike Taifei.
By the way, I saw Darren
German.
Cole.
Gotcha.
Darren Cole, my buddy from Canada, shout out. Good to hear you, my friend. Hope you're doing well. Have you heard from Freddie or any of those guys? Do you know if he's back yet? Ping me, text me, and let me know. But good to hear from you, bro. Let's see what else we got. Oh, here we go. Joe, hey Jack 2. Larry made mention you highly discourage external extractors on a 1911 in a hostile environment. I assume you're referring to dust causing such a potential malfunction. Please elaborate. I'll tell you what it is. And this goes from my personal experience. I don't think external extractors have been engineered correctly in the majority of 1911s. The company who's probably done the best overall is Smith & Wesson. Most of the rest of them, with Kimber being a perfect example, they kind of did a hybrid. They kind of, frankly, they copied the Glock extractor, and they had major problems with that. My gut feeling is it's just never been done right, and I kind of flip my opinion on that. I used to be a big advocate for the external extractor on the 1911, and now they're either right from the factory or they're not, and there isn't a whole lot you can do about it. So now I kind of shy away from them. I'm kind of that, once bitten, twice shy type thing. What do you got here, man? What are you seeing?
We're missing. I'm gonna scroll down. Let's see. Ooh, this is a good one. And again, I'm picking some of the subjects that I'll be talking about on Gray Man. Lloyd Brahm said, "What's your opinion on guardian versus warrior mindset for law enforcement officers?" This is a great question, and this is right in the wheelhouse of kind of what the concept of the Gray Man is about. And like everything, at the end of the day, it's LEO, right, or law enforcement right now is very much caught in a catch-22. And the catch-22 that they're in is don't be militarized, don't be this, don't be that, be peace officers. And then yet they're going against, San Bernardino shooters and all these different things where they're having to deal with what would be more commonly an active shooter situation. An active shooter situation is more of a military type response. So again, they're kind of caught in the middle. And therefore, this is a very complicated subject and one I'll talk about much further. But I'd say with that catch-22, right now, law enforcement is probably, at least in my lifetime, I don't know about Larry's, but probably the most difficult time to be in law enforcement, at least that I can ever remember.
Without a doubt.
And the like we talked about, the battlefield is changing. The battlefield is now it's at home, and so law enforcement kind of needs to be that catch-22, which is both a guardian and a warrior mindset, and that's very hard to do. Which is, I think, why they're kind of not from our perceptions, but from the public at large. Damned if they do, and damned if they don't.
I'm gonna tell you, I've got a lot of cop buddies. I mean, every class I got cops in there. I mean, my heart goes out to them. They have a very difficult job.
Impossible, really.
I'll tell you one thing though. As a community, you guys have got to start policing your own. That's one thing where we came from in the special operations community. If you had guys that didn't need to be there, we got rid of them. And tell you, and you guys know what I'm talking about. The cops are out there know what I'm talking about. If you have guys in uniform that do not need to be on the job, you have to do the right thing and get those guys out the door. Those are some of the guys that are causing you guys problems right now. You have got to police your own. And you know what I'm talking about. You can't look the other way anymore. If you got some guy who goes, well, I don't want to say anything because, this and that and the other, and he ends up shooting somebody or doing something wrong, that is going to splash on all you guys. So you've got to police your own. That's the one piece of advice I got to my LEO buddies out there is take a real good look around. And if you got guys in uniform, that don't need to be there, you got to do the right thing and show them the door. As soon as you do that, trust me, your life will get easier. Cool. Let's see what we got here. I see Neil Batelli likes my shirt. Thank you, Neil.
That's Chin logged in as a different name.
Yeah, he's a good dude. I know Neil. And you're right. Let's see here.
I saw advice. Who said advice? Or was that?
Well, hey, Mike, we did say your name, but we screwed up the last part. Right there. Mike, what did you say? Thieves? What is it? How do you say that? Mike Thieves. I can't believe Larry.
No, we said it right.
Did you say it right?
I said it right because he corrected it. It's German. I corrected it. we're on it, ish.
Okay, Scott Shepard, Larry, if you had only one handgun for concealed carry, what would it be?
Oh, we
Glock
brought that.
19.
Yeah,
Yeah,
19.
no doubt.
And we know probably some people are, getting on here late after we've already talked to some of these subjects. So for some of the people that have been around, sorry for listening to the same thing twice.
Hey, Kevin Carroll, any word on the Gen 5 Glocks that you can share? I assume you're talking about the FBI guns. I don't have any solid info. I've just got kind of some scuttlebutt. I've been told, and I could be way off, trust me, so just take this with a grain of salt, that they actually tested Gen 4s. I mean, like I said, I could be way off. But anyway, the FBI chose Glocks, and then they asked them to do it, obviously, with no finger grooves, but with ambi slide release. So you might see an ambi slide release on the upcoming, who knows? We'll see. That could be way off, but that's one thing I heard. I got a buddy up in PA that turned me on to that. Okay. Who's the other guy? It's Tyler Gray, man.
Sir Y. Lim.
Who's the other guy? Tyler Gray.
Got it.
Okay, Al Kerner did sign up roughly. When is the AR book coming out? We're looking to launch the AR-15 Volume 1 around the same time this year as we launched the 1911 last year. So in theory, around the middle of November. That's the game plan. We've got it submitted to the publisher. We had a lot of people help out. I'm going to tell you right now, no bullshit. This thing is going to knock your socks off. Trust me, once you see the book, you are going to be blown away. Just to let you know, we've got pre-production prototype XAR-1501 in the book. We've got serial number 1, 2, 3, and 4, all in AR-15 Volume 1. There's never been anything like it done on this weapon series ever. It is going to it's going to blow your way. So you want to stay abreast of when it's released, go to www.vickersguide.com and sign up for the newsletter. Me and James, my co-author and photographer, we will make sure that you're on track. And trust me. And then our goal is, the game plan is to release Volume 2 next spring. So spring 2017 for Volume 2, and Volume 1 will be this, before the holiday season, like last year's 1911 book. Yeah, it will be well worth the wait. I am really stoked about it, big time. All right, what do we got?
So give Mike Taife a shout out.
There you go, Mike Taife. See, you got it.
Got it done. I would love to address this one right here.
Witness on thoughts by Jimmy Gentle. Thoughts on co-witness on carbine. Have at it, bro.
So my thoughts on co-witnessing on a carbine are this, or a carbine or this. When I started first looking into co-witness sites, you kind of have the dot, and again, I'm going to use kind of the most traditional, having the dot hover on an A2 front sight post is kind of the older school when co-witness first started coming out. And I used it. I tried it for a while. Again, I'm not going to give my opinion on anything that I haven't tried. My personal opinion on co-witness is that it's a waste of time.
No, I'm not a fan of it.
And the reason I say it's a waste of time is because if the dot is on target, then why do you need a second sight picture if one is already right? Mm-hmm. If the dot's going to hit, then why do you need to take the time for a confirmation for something that you already know? You're taking twice the amount of time, and you're essentially at that point ruining the entire advantage that you've given yourself by getting a red dot sight. Because now you're going red dot, check with my slower irons, now fire.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
It just doesn't make sense.
Well, and it robs so much of the field of view, and I can tell you, co-witness is where the push came for the folding sights, because people are like, well, I don't like that thing up my field of view.
Yeah.
I want it folded down.
And then I can
now,
open it up when I need them.
Hello. Now, when are you going to figure out that your red dot doesn't work and I need my irons? When I'm up on target. So personally, this is just the way I look at it. Magnified optic, folding sights. Red dot, bottom third, fixed sights. That's the way I do it, and that's the way I've done it since Christ was a corporal. I just have the irons in the bottom third are up all the time. I generally run a ghost ring in the rear. I'm running my aim point, and if for whatever reason it's not there, I forgot to turn it on, and it's too dim, whatnot, then there's my irons. And then magnified optic, you can't use irons anyway. They're completely. That's where the folding sights come in. That's the way I look at it. All right, what do we got?
I thought a good one was, and actually Matthew Lloyd said, talking about equal opportunity and filling a quota as far as response to your law enforcement policing up their own. And again, I mean, it's obviously very complicated, and you've got, massive political hurdles to overcome. And I think Larry, we didn't really have time to say it, but I think what Larry meant with his police your own is it's not on necessarily the officers, the boots on the ground. What it really is on the command structure and the overall political structure of this country's law enforcement to realize that they need to be policing up those people that should have never been hired in the first place, or after a certain amount of time on the ground, hey, these are people obviously that can't do this job and they got to go. So it's not on necessarily just, the officer on the ground, but it's also even taking it even bigger. For society as a whole, we need to look at law enforcement and go, look, they need the resources, they need more money to be able to train, to be able to do the job that they're expected to do, which is unfathomably difficult on a day-to-day basis.
Oh yeah, the most difficult job going by a large margin.
People, and I'm going to say something about that actually, because people always come up to me, oh, thank you for your service, and that's great, don't get me wrong. But law enforcement, they do that day in and day out. They do service day in and day out, and who thanks them? Oh, yeah. I can promise you it's not enough people. I can promise you that.
Okay, let's see what we got. We already talked about Skylar McLaren. For co-witness, do you prefer absolute or bottom 1/3? We just addressed it. I'm a bottom 1/3 guy. My theory is red dot sight. I use aim point. That's my go-to brand, has been for a long time. I use bottom 1/3 fixed irons up all the time, and then if I'm using a magnified optic, that's when the folding sights come into play.
I'm going to address Ian Willis said red dot or magnified optic for rural LE. I'm sure Larry's probably going to be on board with what I say, but again, I've never been a rural law enforcement officer, but just based on taking that to the battlefield, I would go with a magnified optic. And the reason is because in that environment, distance is going to be probably more often happening than some kind of very tight, close quarters environment, which if that does happen, probably going to be in a low light situation. And then you could probably use your light to engage at close quarters. So you're probably going to want to stick with a magnified optic. That here's the thing that people don't really, whenever people talk about magnified optics, they miss, in my opinion, the number one advantage of a magnified optic. And it has nothing to do with shooting. A magnified optic doesn't just allow you, it actually doesn't allow you to shoot better. That's a misconception. What it allows you to do is see the target better.
Yeah, it's target identification.
So once you can see the target better, now you can identify, now you can see what's going on, now you have better situational awareness of what's happening where that muzzle's pointed. And that makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, I just made a post on Soldier Systems Daily this last weekend about this, because I get people asking red dot or magnified optic. Sometimes eyesight comes into play and people have astigmatism and they really can't see a crisp dot. Then they really need to look at a magnified optic. But my theory is if you look at your engagements and they're realistically going to be under 100 meters, then a red dot's probably the way to go. If you're going to look at your engagements and they're realistically, very possibly could be past 100, then you need to start looking at a magnified optic. That's kind of the way I look at it. Cool. What do we got?
You should probably address the Mo Reyes. Mo Reyes. My bad. Mo Reyes asked, now that Alias training is down, where do I register for LAV classes?
AztecTrainingServices.com. It's AztecTrainingServices.com. And you can always go to my website, VickersTactical.com, and that'll guide you right into the same thing. But AztecTrainingServices.com. I'm part owner. There's 3 of us that own the company. And we're going to make sure things are done right. And worst case, you can get a hold of me. And I'll crack the whip. But yeah. AztecTrainingServices.com.
Here's a good one, actually.
Jacob Nunn. Larry would love a shout out. You got it. And what's your opinion on Bullpups? We just did a video today on the Tavor. I like Bullpups. Hell, I'm an assault rifle guy. I mean, I like all, different types of assault rifles. Granted, I pick a Bravo Company M4 as my go-to gun, and I have the most, familiarity with it. But I like to be able to run all different kinds of them: AKs, FALs, G3s, SCARs, M14s. I mean, you name it, including Bullpups. My favorite bullpup would have to be the Tavor. Now, I do have an X95 post sample, and I haven't had a chance to shake it out yet. I plan on doing a video with it in the future. It's a post sample now, so it's a shorter barreled. I know the longer barreled ones, they've had some accuracy issues with it, and I'd like to figure out what's going on with that. Could possibly be, and understand, when you have a gun that's properly designed for a shorter barrel, when you lengthen it, you can have some real issues. You can't just arbitrarily make a barrel longer because you have harmonics issues. You could have accuracy issues that are directly attributable to making that barrel longer. So I'll see when I shoot my post sample, which has a significantly shorter barrel, and see what the accuracy does. We'll see. But I prefer the Tavor. If I had to pick one bullpup, it would be a Tavor.
Skylar McLaren, any experience with the 1-4 or 1-6 optics? What do you think their best application is? I've personally used a 1-4, I've used a 1-6, and I've used a 1-8. Again, it all depends on what your ultimate end state is, what your ultimate goal is for what you're using. 1-4, even 1-6, and again, going back to what I just said, there's, I could stick, 4 power is a great power to do a lot of work, especially in a 5.56, 223 caliber. When the 1-6s came out, I went to the 1-6 and I noticed myself using the 6 power sometimes again to observe and then rolling it back to 4 power to actually fire. Reason being, a lot of people don't really think about this, but the more magnification in the optic, the more that you're magnifying your instability and your movement in the gun. A 1-8, which you didn't mention in your question, but I'll mention it, is 1-6, 1-8. Now you're getting on something that you'd put on a 7.62, like an SR25 or something like that. And again, the best thing about a 1 to really anything, and by the way, FYI, optics, as Larry can tell you, aren't ever really truly 1-4 or 1-6. If there's any kind of magnification involved, they're technically 1.1, which no one really says, but it's barely there because of the way they're made. But 1-6,
the better ones, they take a lot of that out of the equation.
You can't even tell.
Right.
Yeah.
They're closer to it and whatnot, and they do. When you have hey, there's a reason why scopes like Schmidt and Benders cost as much money as they do.
Absolutely.
And
quality of glass, and they're trying to eliminate that.
Exactly. There's a lot of factors they're developing, engineering to get rid of it. But he's 100% right.
But they're great optics. 1-6, 1-8 would be more something on a 7.62, and now you've got something that you can do great close-in work with, and then really reach out and touch someone, or reach out and identify someone that doesn't need to be touched.
All right, see what we got here. Water or Vodka, Larry, by Thomas Jeanette. Water. I don't drink.
Yeah, Larry's a non-drinker.
A non-drinker, always have been. I bought a lot of guns with the money I would have spent in bars. A lot.
This might be something that you'd.
Right here,
Yeah.
best defense was that you do the ammo load for 9mm. Man, the Winchester Ranger 127 grain plus P plus has a great rep, and the Spear Gold Dot. They have great reputation. So those are kind of your go-to rounds. I've yet to talk to anybody that has ever used those rounds. I've been disappointed in. So Winchester Ranger 127 grain plus P plus Spear Gold Dot. Both of those.
I'm going to answer this one because it's actually, and I know you. Matthew Daughtry. No, there's no R.
Yeah.
Dottie. Matthew Dottie.
We screwed it.
Sorry, we have butchered that one. I was in, and while I was in, I was using EOTechs. To be honest, at the time, I liked my EOTech. You know, the whole EOTech debacle, you know, it is what it is, and that's on that company what happened. That being said, kind of as a general rule, everyone needs to understand that never, you at the end of the day have to be good enough to know when you're out shooting your gear.
That's a good point.
And if you don't, then you don't know what is. If you can't outshoot everything that you have, then A, there's no reason to upgrade to something that you can't outshoot. And B, you don't really know what factors are causing inaccuracy in your weapon system until you remove yourself out of the equation.
And I see that on occasion. I see that with handguns on occasion. We're all shooting. I'll go, I know this thing, that it is not me.
Yep.
I know that. And you want to get to the point where you have enough confidence in your skill level that if you go out and I zero this thing and I come out the next day or a week later and it's off and I go, you know what?
It ain't me.
That ain't me.
Yeah. That's happened to me. You know, you'll travel with your pistol and your luggage, whatever. Your pistol sight gets knocked. You go to the range. You know, you're dumping a couple at say 25 yards, and you're off, and you're going, man, I know those were good shots. And then I always look at oh man, my sight got knocked. So get to the point where you can really, at the end of the day, a really good skill level to get to is where you can assess your own ability and assess your own equipment's reliability and accuracy based on an assessment of your ability.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, thanks for watching the Vickers Tactical YouTube channel. To subscribe, click here. And to watch some of my favorite videos, click here. Have a good one. LAV out.